The New York Knicks opened the Eastern Conference playoffs this Saturday against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's break that series down. Well, welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm WatchUK99. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch these videos. If you're brand new, thank you for stopping by. Please like and subscribe. If you're returning, welcome back. I appreciate your support. Please like. So today, we're going to talk a little New York Knicks. We're going to talk a little Cleveland Cavaliers. They're playing each other in the 4 versus 5 seed matchup in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Series kicks off this Saturday night, 6 p.m. in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, it's interesting that the Knicks won the season series 3-1. They've been a tough matchup for Cleveland, even though the Cavs did finish 4 games better than the Knicks. So, in this video, what we're really going to do, got a couple of different chapters here. Number one, we're going to break down the Jalen Brunson, Donavan Mitchell marquee matchup. That's the one that all the headlines are going to talk about. We're going to talk about Cleveland, some of their supporting players as well, to get kind of a scouting report on them. I'm also going to give you some X factors for this series, some things that I think could play a big role in determining the outcome. I've also got 5 pivotal players that we're going to talk about, some with the Knicks and some with the Cavs. We're going to talk about that, and finally, I'm going to give you my series prediction. So let's talk about Jalen Brunson versus Donavan Mitchell. Everybody knows the story that Donavan Mitchell was supposed to be traded to the New York Knicks for seemingly forever. You could talk about whatever you want. Danny Ainge didn't want to trade him to the Knicks, whether it's because Ainge hates the Knicks from his days playing in Boston, maybe because Donavan Mitchell wanted to be a Knick, maybe he refused to accommodate the player's request, whatever it may be. But instead he goes to Cleveland this past offseason, and it has worked out quite well. But Brunson versus Mitchell is a really interesting matchup. You know, if you look at just the regular season here, Donavan Mitchell put up 31.8 points per game against the Knicks, including 38 in their first meeting, which the Cavs won. But Brunson, he's still doing pretty well. He's scoring 25 points per game, including 48 in their most recent showdown against Cleveland. Now, Brunson is not going to dominate the basketball as much as Donavan Mitchell will, but Brunson seems to be the go-to player late in games, and I expect a lot of these games to come down to the final possession. But here's the thing, even though Mitchell is probably widely regarded as the better player, and deservedly so, Mitchell is an amazing talent, Brunson plays him really well. If you look at last year's playoff series when Dallas played Utah, back when Brunson was in Dallas and Mitchell was in Utah, Brunson kind of got the better of him. Brunson scored 27.8 points per game and shot 48% from the field in that series, compared to Mitchell, who scored only 25 points per game and shot 39.8% from the floor. So Brunson does seem to play very well against Mitchell. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. But Mitchell's had an amazing season. Just to give you one stat, this is amazing to me. He has scored 40 points in a game 12 times this season. LeBron James never did that for Cleveland. That is pretty amazing. And Mitchell seems to take his game up in the playoffs. He has scored 28.3 points per game in the postseason. That's the 7th highest mark in the history of the NBA. So the Knicks, they're not known for being a great defensive team. They're kind of an average defensive team, but they have to have a plan for Donavan Mitchell. But it's more than just Mitchell. The Cavs have another all-star caliber guard in Dariusgarland. A rising star is the big man, Evan Mobley. He may vie for Defensive Player of the Year. The Cavs really like to play the pick and roll. That's where they're at their best. That's where Garland and Mitchell really thrive, as opposed to isolation. So they're really going to try to do a lot of quick movement, quick passing. It's up to the Knicks to find a way to slow down the pick and roll. That is going to be so important. Now, Garland and Mobley are making their postseason debuts. Now, the Cavs do have a couple of former Nets on the team, interestingly enough, and jarrettallen and carislevert. Both of whom came over in the now infamous James Harden trade from Houston to Brooklyn, which didn't quite work out. Now, both of them have a pair of first-round exits in their history. And the thing with the Knicks defense, one thing they did very well, and one of the reasons they were able to win those games against Cleveland, is they did a great job against carislevert. LeVert shot 43% for the season. Against the Knicks, just 29%. So they got to keep that going against LeVert. Now, if you look at the top four, Mitchell, Garland, Allen, and Mobley, that's about as talented, really, as any roster in the league. But the fifth spot in the starting lineup, that's a little bit tricky. I mean, LeVert does play his share of minutes, but he usually doesn't start for this team. He usually comes in off the bench. Now, the player who's been getting quite a bit of time is Isaacokoro. So seeing the Cleveland depth, that's going to make a big difference in this series. The Knicks really have the better bench. When you factor in Isaiah Hartenstein, Josh Hart, Immanuelquickley, as opposed to, say, Dean Wade, Ricky Rubio, C.D. Osman. I thought he was like one of the extra brothers from the old singing family, C.D. Osman, but not quite. But in the last two games, one of the reasons that the Knicks did so well also is they obliterated the Cavs bench. It's the Knicks depth, and that's one of the things that that's one of the biggest advantages the Knicks will have in this series, is their ability to go deep. And the Cavs, they've got the top-rated defense in the NBA. Now, that is going to be my first X factor that we're going to talk about. The Knicks offense against the Cleveland defense. So the Cavs have allowed 106.9 points per game this season. That is the best in the NBA. Now, as an NBA fan for many years, I think about the 90s when games would finish in the 80s. I can't believe the best defense in the NBA allowed over 100 points per game, but here we are. So I expect Cleveland to throw a whole bunch of looks at the Knicks to try to confuse them, to shut them down, especially with Julius Randle's ankle being another huge storyline for this series. Now, Randle is currently practicing. Kind of on his own, nothing too crazy, but he is doing some running. He is doing some shooting. I do expect him to be able to play in the series, but will he be 100%? Only time will tell. Now, as far as guarding Jalen Brunson, because if Randle's limited, Cleveland's going to really turn their attention to Jalen Brunson. So expect them to try to trap the pick and roll, because, you know, Brunson really likes to drive to the hoop and create something off the dribble. Cleveland's going to try to stop that, and they're going to try to funnel him, like move him into the court right towards the path of their big men, right towards Jarrettallen, right towards Evan Mobley, to try to block a shot, to force turnovers. That's what Cleveland's going to probably try to do. Now, here is why Randle is so important. Cleveland, even though they're a very good defensive team, they don't really have an ideal matchup to guard Julius Randle. Now, Evan Mobley, like we said, a very good defensive player, and he can make those jumpers pretty difficult for Randle to shoot, but he isn't really fast enough to keep up with Julius Randle's speed when Randle is operating at 100%. Same thing with Jarrettallen, and the wings are just too small. Allen doesn't really have enough speed to keep up with Randle, and the wings, the small forwards, they just don't have the size to be able to contest those jump shots from Randle. So he could be a matchup nightmare if he plays the way that he's capable of. Now, the other X factor I want to talk about here is rebounding. This is going to be a really, really big deal. Now, the Knicks for the season finished third in rebounding with 46 boards per game. The Cavs just 25th with 41 per game. So the Knicks got to be aggressive on the glass. They cannot allow the Cavaliers chances at second chance points when the Cavs are on offense. And that actually leads perfectly to my first of 5 pivotal players, and it's Mitchell Robinson, the Knicks center. Robinson's actually playing in his first ever playoff series. He didn't play against Atlanta a couple years ago, and Robinson is second in the league to Grizzlies center Steven Adams in offensive boards per game, averaging more than 4 per contest. And I think with Allen and Mobley in particular, it's very important that Robinson stay out of foul trouble. That's one of the biggest knocks on Robinson, is he tends to get himself in foul trouble and he goes out of the game. Isaiah Hartenstein is a fine backup, but if Robinson can give the Knicks a good 25-30 minutes per game, it's going to go a long, long way for the Knicks to be able to rebound and control the boards and thus control the game. Robinson appeared against the Cavaliers in 3 of their 4 contests. He averaged 6 points, 10.7 rebounds per game, and a block per game. And if you look at overall net rating, which is kind of like the plus-minus in hockey, with Robinson on the floor, the Knicks were a plus 7.3 net rating. That's only behind Josh Hart at 11.9. Now, Josh Hart is my second pivotal player I want to talk about. You know, when he came to the Knicks on February 9th in that trade with the Portland Trail Blazers, the Knicks transformed. There's no other way to say it. At the time, the Knicks were 30-26. They seemed to be destined for the play-in round. You know, but after that, they went 17-9, and you could even throw out those last two losses that they had because Randle and Brunson didn't even play in those games. And they've also had winning streaks since that time of 9 and 5 games, respectively. Hart is such a great X factor. He's a defender. He can cover forwards and guards. Outstanding spot-up player. He shoots threes well. He has a good mid-range game. And he's converting, if you look at his spot-up ability, he is converting those spot-up opportunities 1.25 points per possession with the Knicks. To put that in context, that's right on the level with Michael Porter from Denver, who's considered about as good of a spot-up guard as there is in the NBA. So Josh Hart is going, his energy, his soul, and no pun intended, his heart really helps empower this Knicks team. And the third Knicks player I want to mention briefly is RjBarrett. You know, Barrett is a very polarizing player. You know, he may never live up to being the number 3 overall pick, but I think that the Cavs are going to basically dare RjBarrett to beat them. They're going to put their focus on Randle and Brunson and limiting them and daring anybody else to defeat them in this series. I think they're going to dare Barrett to shoot it deep. You know, RjBarrett shot just 31% from three-point range this year. Over the last month, even worse, just 22%. I think Barrett's going to get some open jumpers, and he has to hit those jumpers. It's going to be so big. Now, as far as Cleveland goes, I've got 2 players to mention there. I want to go into Jarrettallen just a little bit more. He has been a force against the Knicks. He was only healthy for 2 of the 4 games that the 2 teams played against each other, but in those 2 games, he couldn't be stopped. 15 points, 12.5 rebounds per game, shot over 60% from the field. Again, this is a situation where I would focus, if I'm the Cleveland coaching staff, my offense is revolving around Mitchell and Allen. Those are the 2 places to go. Go after Mitchell-Robinson, trying to get him off the floor, and then just exploit the Knicks down low. I think that's the best thing they could do. Another player is Isaacokoro, who I mentioned briefly earlier. He tends to play about 20 to 25 minutes per game. He's kind of a relied-on three-point shooter on this team. He's not the best player. He's really better at defense. He's a good point-of-attack defender. Now, he is shooting 44% from 3 since he joined the starting lineup, but I think he's going to have some open threes on kickbacks. Like we talked about RjBarrett getting a lot of open looks potentially from three-point range. I think Isaacokoro could be that sort of player for Cleveland. So which of those 2 players is going to shoot better? I think that's going to make a big difference. So with that in mind, let's make a prediction. I fully expect a long series. If this doesn't go 6 games at least, I will be very, very surprised. The Cavs are heavy favorites. In fact, on ESPN, of their 17 experts, 13 of them pick Cleveland. But you know what? The Knicks may not have the best player in this series, but they've got the depth. They've got some studs. They got a good regular season record against Cleveland. I really think this series is anyone's for the taking. If Julius Randle was healthy, I would feel pretty confident. I would actually go Knicks in 6 if Randle was fully healthy. But that really brings it back to the drawing board, doesn't it? I mean, both coaches preach defense. Neither team turns the ball over much. Both of these teams are in the top 5 in turnovers per game, which is pretty impressive. Both teams have amazing point guards driving their attacks. I think for the Knicks to win, they have to have another player besides Brunson and Randle have a huge series. Brunson is not going to win the series by himself. I think Josh Hart or Immanuelquickley are going to have to be great. Mitchell is the best player in the series by far, but I just have a bad feeling about the down-low game that Cleveland's going to have the edge there. I think they're going to get Robinson in trouble. I think Jarrettallen's going to make a big difference in this series. It's going to be very close, very back and forth, but because of those reasons I've mentioned, Randle's injury, and I guess because I have that much respect for Jarrettallen and the Cleveland defense, I'm going to take the Cavs in 7 games to win this series and advance to the second round. Well, those are my thoughts. I want to see your thoughts. Give me your prediction. Put it right down there in the comments. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.